Within the first 3 years of a child's development, you are a scout. And ages 4 to 6, you become a model. And talk about manhood when you talk about who a husband is and who a father is. For example, manhood is identity. Husband and father are roles. And those roles are actually optional. Right? And yes, right? And husband and father are roles. And those roles are optional, and those roles have role description. Now, so if you don't meet up with the description of the roles, you can't be called to be a father, even though you may have donated semen that has produced a seed that you call a child. Right? And so when people don't understand that, and even people teach it, they mix up these things. So they call, a man as a father and a husband, and they generalize a whole lot of things. And that's why we say that you can actually be, maybe a bad man and be a good father and be a bad husband. You can be a good man and a bad father and a bad husband. You can be a good man, a good husband and a bad father. Because it's a function of the roles and your understanding of the roles. And so when people don't understand this thing, they just make sense and say, because the man is a bad man, he's a bad father. No, because your humanity is what your identity is, actually what manhood is. And that's why even the word man, is not gender centric, is the word humanity expressed in two gender, male and female, right? And so when people don't understand the foundation, and I say, okay, so when you talk about fatherhood, like I said, a source, right? And so a source provides direction, because again, you can't talk fatherhood and motherhood without talking parenting, right? So parenting is actually from the word bring forth, which is basically someone who can identify the potential of a child, right, and develop that potential and cultivate it till the time where you present it to the society in service to God and humanity, right? And so a father figure then becomes the one who provides the direction, who provides the structure, who provides the foundation that can promote the best interest of the child. And that is why you can't be a father and deal with insecurity or have low self-esteem or not even have enough knowledge to understand, to be able to identify your child. Because in child development or child scripting, like we call it, there are different milestones. And you need to know at different milestones in the life of a child, you need to get into character. So for example, within the first 3 years of a child's development, you are a scout. And basically what you're doing is you are observing the potential of the child and you are interpreting what the child is doing. And that's why you can't scream and yell and do all the things that people do. And so you see I was in a meeting last week and the person was saying that my 2-year-old, is doing well academically and, but then the child is stubborn. And I'm like, a 2-year-old do well academically. A 2-year-old should be playing. You should not be doing anything academical. A 2-year-old should be playing, right? And so if you don't understand that your job is to scout and observe and interpret, right, you will be behaving, you'll get into another character that can damage the best interest of the child. Because from ages 4 to 6, you become a model. And at that age, you are modeling a whole lot of things. You model the life you want your child to live to him.
Exactly.
Right? And so if you're not a father who maybe reads hardcover books, for example, if you're always on your gadget, your child won't be on your gadget. I mean, when my son was age 6, I had pot belly. My son was having a conversation with my wife, and he said, when I grow up, my thumb will be as big as my daddy's tummy. Right? Because that was what he was seeing at that age. And so I got into the gym, and I dropped 14 kg, and I took out the pot belly, right? Because I was like, this boy doesn't even think about my intelligence. He wants to have pot belly. Now, from ages 7 to 9, you become an instructor. And that is where you need to create your own educational system that is not the conventional one that they are learning in school, right? And so you want to, and at that age is where you create what we call perceptual code to say, who do you want your child to be? Because, parenting is an 18-year curriculum. What happens from age 19 is your report card, as it were, right? And so when you don't understand that, if you now get into instructional ability where you now begin to instruct your child, that's where you teach a child about contentment. That's where you teach a child, about friendship, about love, about loyalty, about several things that you need to teach, right? And then when you exit that age, you move into friendship, which is the transitional age. And why do we move into friendship in transitional age? Is because that's the age a lot of parents lose their children. When a child clocks 10 to 12, thereabout, you assume that they can take care of themselves. And that's when they have best friend. That's when they're learning new slangs. That's when they are on their own, right? And so if you are not their best friend at that age, they will literally sell you. you, because then you need to know their passcodes, you need to know what they are saying, you need to know some of the conversations, some of the slangs they are having and all, right? Because at that age, you want to keep your child in a place where they're emotionally accountable to you and where they can tell you what they're going through without thinking that you are going to maybe get unnecessarily upset. Because many a time, when things don't go our way, our response to a child is anger. And that's why I always say your response to your child has got to be love. Because the moment your child feels that there's a system out there that loves him or her more than you, you're likely going to lose that child. Now, from ages 13 to 18, you become a coach. At that age, you're balancing perspectives, right? At that age, because a lot of parents struggle with their teenagers, because when they have teenagers, they don't have respect for the teenagers because they are still looking at the teenagers through the prism of the child they gave birth to. Now, at that age, your child is going to disagree with you. His perspective is going to be different from you. So your job is to balance perspective and help them arrive at a decision that is their own best interest. Now, if you have done the right job from the beginning, when you get to that age, you won't have a problem because your child already knows that my daddy loves me, right? And so when people are absent or when people don't understand the role, they won't. In fact, I always say to people that when you understand fatherhood, you may actually say that you don't want to be a father, and you'll be right, because it's a whole lot of work, right? And you need to sit down and you're literally raising a human being, right, who you're going to present to society. That's why the Jews have a concept they call bat mitzvah, wherein at the age of 14, you're actually literally bringing your child to the society and you are putting your hand on the child to say, this is my beloved child, I gave birth to this one, I produced this one, right? And so that is why I often, cringe when I see people just think that, fatherhood is, I can provide money, right? Fatherhood is, I can pay school fees. Fatherhood is, I gave birth to you. No, it doesn't work that way, because it's a whole lot of things to unpack, and you actually need to sit down and learn what it takes to get into those various characters at various milestones in the life of a child. So there is a manual, but that manual is not rigid, right? Because you need to understand that, we are from different cultures and from different persuasion. But the most important thing is every child is unique. And if you can't pick the signal that child is sending to you, you're going to damage it. I'll give you an example. When my son was 3, he was in a crèche. And they called me that he was destructive. That was the word they used. And that's why I always say to parents, your child's teacher must not know about your child more than you. And what did they call destructive? They said he will come to school and then he was breaking people's pencils. So I went to school. The first thing I did, I said, let me come and observe, right? And so I got into school and I dropped him and I observed. The first thing that happened was that he got in there and he asked everyone in that crèche, can you bring your pencil? And all of them willingly surrendered their pencil. Leadership was what I saw. Right, this is an influencer. Then the next thing, they gave him the pencils. Then he hit it on, the piece of wood, and then it started to break. I knew that it was playing drum set. So I saw it. So I actually asked them, I would buy packs of pencil and come and for those who was bringing them. And I took him, the moment I picked him in the afternoon, I took him to a place where they were buying drum sets and I bought him drum set. That was the last time he broke pencil. Wow. Now, some parents will not be able to interpret that accurately, and they will say, based on the intelligence the teacher has given them, they begin to beat the child. They say you are destructive. They begin to send him to all kinds of people. And so you see a whole lot, the way we interpret, right? Another instance is where I tell parents, if you walk into a room and you have your 4-year-old with your new iPhone, and the boy has literally, there's water all around your house and your iPhone is in that water and the child is playing there, what are you going to do? The response is to beat the child, as if the child sat down and said, today, I am going to flood this house and I'm going to put my mommy's phone. No, the child is not thinking that way. And that's why we say you cannot raise a child thinking like an adult. You first need to think like a child, right? To say what's going on in the mind of this child. And by the time you pieces that information and put it together, it was possible that maybe you went for a meeting and someone's house and the child saw a swimming pool in the sitting room and is trying to replicate it, right? And so if you don't understand and observe, you are going to damage the child. And so what I always say to people is this, you see, principles are universal, application is different. And so you need to be able to ask, who is my own child? One, then as a family, what type of outcome, what kind of children do we want to send to the society? So you can have and say, for example, that as a family, we want to send out activists or we want to send out royalties and things like that. Because every family has got what we call their superpower.